Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
We're continuing our reading of the Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta from the Madhya chapter 2. Madhya chapter 10. And the chapter is entitled, The Lord's Return to Jagannath Purī. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had many talks with King Prataparudra. When Maharaj Prataparudra requested the Bhattacharya to arrange an interview with the Lord, the Bhattacharya assured him that he would try to do so as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from South India. When the Lord returned to Jagannath Purī from his South Indian tour, he lived at the home of Kashi Mishra. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya introduced many Vaishnavas to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his return. The father of Ramananda Roy, Bhavananda Roy, offered another son named Vaninath Patanyayaka for the Lord's service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed his associates about the pollution of Krishnadas brought about by his association with the Bhattadharis, and thus the Lord proposed to give him leave. Nityananda Prabhu sent Krishnadas to Bengal to inform the Navadvip devotees about the Lord's return to Jagannath Purī. All the devotees of Navadvip thus began arranging to come to Jagannath Purī. At this time, Paramananda Puri was at Navadvip, and immediately upon hearing news of the Lord's return, he started for Jagannath Purī accompanied by a Brahmana named Kamalakanta. Purushottam Brahmachari, a resident of Navadvip, was educated at Varanasi. He accepted the renounced order from Chaitanyananda, but he took the name of Swarup. Thus he arrived at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After the demise of Sri Ishwarapuri, his disciple Govinda, following his instructions, went to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Due to his relationship with Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Bharati was also respectfully received by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he arrived at Jagannath Purī, he was advised to give up the deerskin clothing he wore. When Brahmananda understood Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu correctly, he accepted him as Krishna himself. However, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna, the Lord immediately protested. In the meantime, Kashishvar Goswami also came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this chapter, devotees from many different areas came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they are exactly like many rivers that come from many places to finally flow into the sea. Text 1. Tam bande gura jaladam swasyayo darshanamratai vicheda vagraha mlana bhakta shashyan ya jivayat. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is compared to a cloud that pours water on fields of grain, which are like devotees suffering due to a shortage of rain. Separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a drought, but when the Lord returns, his presence is like a nectarian rain that falls on all the grains and saves them from perishing. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed for South India, King Prataparudra called Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to his palace. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met with the king offered him a seat with all respects and inquired about news of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The king said to the Bhattacharya, I have heard that a great personality has come from Bengal and is staying at your home. I have also heard that he is very, very merciful. I have also heard that this great personality has shown you great favor. At any rate, this is what I hear from many different people. Now, being merciful upon me, you should do me the favor of arranging an interview. The Bhattacharya replied, all that you have heard is true, but as far as an interview is concerned, it is very difficult to arrange. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the renounced order and is very much detached from worldly affairs. He stays in solitary places, and even in dreams he does not grant interviews to kings. Still, I would have tried to arrange your interview, but he has recently left to tour South India. The king asks, why has he left Jagannath Puri? The Bhattacharya replied, such are the pastimes of a great personality. Great saints go to holy places of pilgrimage in order to purify them. For that reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is visiting many tirthas and delivering many, many conditioned souls. Bhavad vida bhagavatas tirtha bhuta swayam vibho tirti kurvanti tirtani svantak stena gadhabrata. From the Bhagavatam. Saints of your caliber, and this is Yudhishthira speaking to Vidura. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Purport. This verse spoken by Maharaj Yudhishthira to Vidura in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.10 is also quoted in the Adi-līlā 1.63. A Vaishnava travels to places of pilgrimage to purify them and reclaim fallen conditioned souls. This is one of the duties of a Vaishnava. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not a living entity, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Consequently, he is a fully independent controller. Yet in his position as a devotee, he carries out the activities of a devotee. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that because there are many permanent residents in holy places who do not precisely follow the rules and regulations governing living in a sacred place, exalted devotees have to go to these places to reclaim such persons. This is the business of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is unhappy to see others materially enmeshed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught these activities of a Vaishnava. Although he is the worshipable deity of all Vaishnavas, the complete and independent Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Purna Shuddho Nityamukta, completely uncontaminated and eternally liberated. He is Sanatan, for he has no beginning or end. Upon hearing this, the king replied, why did you allow him to leave? Why didn't you fall at his lotus feet and keep him here? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself and is completely independent. Being Lord Krishna himself, he is not dependent on anyone. Still, I endeavored very hard to keep him here, but because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and completely independent, I was not successful. The king said, Bhattacharya, you are the most learned and experienced person I know. Therefore, when you address Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Lord Krishna, I accept this as the truth. Does anybody have anything against oxygen? May I?
Yes.
Okay. The king said, Bhattacharya, you are the most learned and experienced person I know. Therefore, when you address Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Lord Krishna, I accept this as the truth. Purport. This is the way to advance in spiritual science. One must accept the words of an acharya, a bona fide spiritual master, to clear the path for spiritual advancement. This is the secret of success. However, one's guide must be a spiritual master who is actually an unalloyed devotee, strictly following the instructions of the previous acharya without deviation. Whatever the spiritual master says must be accepted by the disciple. Only then is success certain. This is the Vedic system. Sarvabhaumacharya was a Brahmana and a realized soul, whereas Prataparuja was a Kshatriya. Kshatriya kings used to obey very faithfully the orders of learned Brahmanas and saintly persons, and in this way they would rule their country. Similarly, Vaishyas used to follow the king's orders, and Shudras used to serve the three higher castes. In this way, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras used to live cooperatively, performing their respective duties. Consequently, society was peaceful, and people were able to discharge the duties of Krishna consciousness. Thus, they were happy in this life and able to return home back to Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returns, I wish to see him just once in order to make my eyes perfect. Sarvabhaumacharya replied, His Holiness Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will return very soon. I wish to have a nice place ready for him, a place solitary and peaceful. Lord Chaitanya's residence should be very secluded and also near the temple of Jagannātha. Please consider this proposal and give me a nice place for him. The king replied, Kashi Mishra's house is exactly what you require. It is near the temple and is very secluded, calm and quiet. After saying this, the king became very anxious for the Lord to return. Sarvabhaumacharya then went to Kashi Mishra to convey the king's desire. When Kashi Mishra heard the proposal, he said, I am very fortunate that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord of all Prabhus, will stay at my home. Purport. In this verse, the word Prabhupāda, referring to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is significant. Regarding this, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada comments, quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of God in himself, Sri Krishna, and all his servants address him as Prabhupada. This means that there are many Prabhus taking shelter under his lotus feet. The pure Vaishnava, unquote, the pure Vaishnava is addressed as Prabhu, and this address is an etiquette observed between Vaishnavas. When many Prabhus remain under the shelter of the lotus feet of another Prabhu, the address Prabhupada is given. Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu are also addressed as Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Advaita Prabhu, and Sri Nityananda Prabhu are all Vishnu Tattva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Therefore, all living entities are under their lotus feet. Lord Vishnu is the eternal Lord of everyone, and the representative of Lord Vishnu is the Lord's confidential servant. Such a person acts as the spiritual master for neophyte Vaishnavas. Therefore, the spiritual master is as respectable as Sri Krishna Chaitanya or Lord Vishnu himself. For this reason, the spiritual master is addressed as Om Vishnupad or Prabhupada. The Acharya, the spiritual master, is generally respected by others as Shripad, and the initiated Vaishnavas are addressed as Prabhu. Prabhu, Prabhupada, and Vishnupad are described in revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. In this regard, these scriptures present evidence accepted by unalloyed devotees. The Prakrita Sahajas are not even worthy of being called Vaishnavas. They think that only caste Goswamis should be called Prabhupada. Such ignorant Sahajas call themselves Vaishnav Das Anudas, which means the servant of the Vaishnavas. However, they are opposed to addressing a pure Vaishnava as Prabhupada. In other words, they are envious of a bona fide spiritual master who is addressed as Prabhupada, and they commit offenses by considering a bona fide spiritual master an ordinary human being or a member of a certain caste. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes such sahajas as most unfortunate. Because of their misconceptions, they fall into a hellish condition. Text 24. Thus all the residents of Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Purushottam, became anxious to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again. When all the residents of Jagannath Puri became extremely anxious to meet the Lord again, he returned from South India. Hearing of the Lord's return, everyone became very happy, and they all went to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and spoke to him as follows. Would you be willing to make any reflections at this point? Anything that you heard so far that you found to be interesting, profound, or helpful? Yeah.
Just said about this categorization of like Prabhupada, Vishnupad, and Prabhu. Please go a little deeper into that. Like, what are these like different categories of like formal address?
In the sense of receiving knowledge, there's a way in which respect is needed. We talked about that last night. Tadvidi pranipatena priprashnena sevaya. Pranipat means that one goes like this before another who has knowledge. And one of the ways that in human society we designate people as being special is by giving them names of distinction. For instance, Paul McCartney's name is Sir Paul McCartney because he's been recognized by the English government as having so much of a contribution to the musical world that he should be knighted. So they call him Sir. And we find that in almost every culture. In the Vaishnava culture, there's a way of making such distinctions so that one can give special recognition. Now, someone may say, well, all Vaishnavas are Vaishnavas, and that's true, and all should be respected. But there are ways in which Rupa Goswami says, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti che pranati bishra bhajantamisham shushushaya bhajana vignamananyamanya nindadi shunya hridamipsita sangalabhya. He, in this verse, number 5 from the Sri Upanishamrita, gives the gradations of the way one should respect devotees. Those who, on the campus of Cal Poly, is that what it's called? Walk by and they go, Hare Krishna. He said, in your mind you should respect them. You think that this is not an ordinary person who's able to say Hare Krishna. Then if you see somebody who not only said Hare Krishna, but then they came to the table, then they came to the program, then they started chanting Hare Krishna with a vow and they took initiation, then you should offer demonstrative obeisances to such a person by bowing down. And then nindadi shunya, hridamipsita. If somebody has become advanced to the point that they no longer have the propensity to criticize others for the sake of self-aggrandizement, then such a person known to have perfected him or herself in the process of devotional service should be respected on the highest level, and one should try to hear from such a person and so forth. Just giving a sense that there is a hierarchy. And so in the ways of giving titles, there are different distinctions for commonly recognized devotees, those who are, that in general are recognized as being in a position of esteem, and therefore there are some names. Of course, Prabhupada, when he first came to America, was just called the Swami, because people, the culture at that time, they knew about India and they knew Swamis came from India, and so they just called him the Swami. And then when they got to know a little more about the history of Prabhupada and the Gaudiya Math and so forth, and they learned about his spiritual master, Prabhupada's spiritual master, being named Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, they asked Prabhupada, can we call you Prabhupada? And Prabhupada agreed to it. And then course, some people complained from the Gaudiya Math, and there's a sense of that in the purport, that when his disciples and Prabhupada's disciples started calling their spiritual master Prabhupada, some of Prabhupada's godbrothers said, wait a minute, that's the name of our spiritual master. So Prabhupada's pointing out here that you should give some honorary title to your spiritual master. And of course, in ISKCON, there is a way in which there are many Diksha gurus, and in the past there were some honorary names used, and still to some degree, but because the tendency to glorify one's own spiritual master in a organization that has so many different gurus, some felt was leading to a kind of sectarian mood. Then, and also the fact that everyone agreed that Prabhupada should be distinguished as the central figure for ISKCON for all time to come. That title of Prabhupada is reserved just for Prabhupada within ISKCON. However, there are some devotees with special titles, but the spirit of it is that there's no harm, in fact there's good in recognizing one's esteemed teachers with a certain title that distinguishes them as being in a certain category. And that's not just for some kind of sense of decorum, but it's practical in the sense that mercy flows down. And if we keep that sense of hierarchy, that someone's above us, and we're able to remember that by addressing them with a title of esteem, then it's likely that the mercy will flow down to us. Yes?
In the Gaudiya Math, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would award titles to his disciples who had become quite accomplished in service. And Srila Prabhupada also, it seemed like there was an idea of doing that with the development of Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, and Bhakti Vedanta. But it didn't really seem like that legacy of name-calling or like giving honorific titles kind of continued in ISKCON. I was just
wondering why?
Yeah.
Because everyone got so freaked out by the zonal guru system that everyone like backed way off of everything, and this title, that title, and it's like, let's just cool it for a few centuries. So that's probably why. But I do know some people who have a Bhakti Shastra degree and they put Bhakti Shastra in the end. But people are not so formal nowadays, maybe because Americans pervaded the movement so much, they abbreviate everything anyway. Hey, Vaish! And, you know, it could be that sort of casual type of thing. And I do think there is a sense in which, you know, titles are not so popular these days. A lot of it has to do with that also. But there's no harm in it. And, you know, I've seen Jayadvaita Maharaj write things about like, hey, if you want to chant your spiritual master's name, you know, feel free. It's not like, he said, at your own risk, but there's nothing wrong. Satya.
Guru Maharaj, actually I have a question from the bhajan that you started off with. So it says, Ek bar naam rashe matore.
Yeah.
So it's like almost Bhaktivinoda Thakur is pleading that you should relish the holy name at least once. But based on what you have mentioned before that we should not go after taste, it will come automatically. We should stick to our processes. So how do we reconcile both of them?
Well, the way I've talked about it is to not discourage anybody, because in the beginning one may not have an intense taste for chanting. So I tend to emphasize consistency in using your intelligence to continue chanting until you do get a taste. Because if if you talk about taste first and then people come back and say, but I don't have any taste, then where's your next move? So I like to say, instead of that. But I also add that there is a taste inherently in dutifully chanting Hare Krishna, even if you don't have an extreme taste. I mean, everyone has some kind of taste, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But there is a taste in saying that, Lord Chaitanya recommended this, and therefore I'm doing it, and you feel, oh yes, I'm connected. But ultimately, it's vital that one gets a taste, because without that, it's sure that we'll be attracted elsewhere. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, mark that, try for that. And the way we would try for that, what does it mean to try for it? Not just chant, but also try to avoid the 10 offenses. So if one modifies one's attitude and lifestyle so that you avoid the 10 offenses, then very quickly you could get a taste. It's possible. Would you like to hear a little more?
Yes.
Do we still have time?
Yes.
Okay.
We have till about 4:45, 4:50.
Okay. Please arrange our meeting with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is only by your mercy that we can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Bhattacharya kahe. The Bhattacharya replied to the people, tomorrow the Lord will be at the house of Kashi Mishra. I shall arrange for you all to meet him. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived and went with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya with great enthusiasm to see the temple of Lord Jagannātha. All the servants of Lord Jagannātha delivered remnants of the Lord's food to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In return, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them all. After seeing Lord Jagannātha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the temple. The Bhattacharya then took him to the house of Kashi Mishra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at his house, Kashi Mishra immediately fell down at his lotus feet and surrendered himself and all his possessions. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then showed Kashi Mishra his four-armed form. Then, accepting him for his service, the Lord embraced him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next sat down at the place prepared for him, and all the devotees, headed by Lord Nityananda Prabhu, surrounded him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see his residential quarters, in which all his necessities were taken care of. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, this place is just befitting you. Please accept it. It is the hope of Kashi Mishra that you do so. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my body belongs to all of you, therefore I agree to whatever you say. After this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, sitting at the right hand of the Lord, began to introduce all the inhabitants of Purushottam Jagannath Puri. The Bhattacharya said, my dear Lord, all these people who are residents of Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, have been very anxious to meet you. In your absence, all these people have been exactly like thirsty chataka birds, crying in disappointment. Kindly accept them. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya first introduced Janardhan, saying, here is Janardhan, servant of Lord Jagannātha. He renders service to the Lord when it is time to renovate his transcendental body. Purport, during Anavasara, after the Snan Yatra ceremony, Lord Jagannātha is absent from the temple for 15 days so he can be renovated. This occurs annually. Janardhan, who is here being introduced to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was rendering this service at the time. The renovation of Lord Jagannātha is also known as Navayovana, which indicates that the Jagannath deity is being fully restored to youth. 42. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, this is Krishna-Das, who carries a golden cane, and here is Shiki Mahiti, who is in charge of writing. The person in charge of writing is also called Deula Karanapada Prapta Karmachari. That's a good title to add to somebody's name. He is employed especially to write a calendar called Matala Panji. This is Pradyumna Mishra, who is chief of all Vaishnavas. He is a great servitor of Jagannātha, and his name is Das. Purport: in Orissa, most of the Brahmanas have the title Das. Generally, it is understood that the word Das refers to those other than the Brahmanas, but in Orissa, the Brahmanas use the Das title. This is confirmed by Chuli Bhatta. Actually, everyone is Das because everyone is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that sense, the bona fide Brahmana has first claim to the appellation Das. Therefore, in this case, the designation Das is not incompatible. This is Murari Mahiti. This is who?
Murari Mahiti.
The brother of Shikhi Mahiti. He has nothing other. Has nothing other than your lotus feet. Here are Chandeshvara, Simheshvara, Murari, Murari Brahmana, and Vishnu Das. They're all constantly engaged in meditating on your lotus feet. Is this bringing in pollen that's making you sneeze?
It's okay. No, it's going to happen whether it's open or not.
Okay. Sorry for that. This is Paramananda Prahararaj, who is known as Mahapatra. He is very, very intelligent. Purport: Prahararaj is a designation given to Brahmanas who represent the king when the throne is vacant. In Orissa, between the time of a king's death and the enthronement of another king, a representative must sit on the throne. This representative is called Prahararaj. The Prahararaj is generally selected from a family of priests close to the king. During the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Prahararaj was Paramananda Prahararaj. All these pure devotees serve as ornaments to Jagannath Puri. They are always undeviatingly meditating upon your lotus feet. After this introduction, everyone fell to the ground like rods, being very merciful upon them all. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced each one of them. At this time, Bhavananda Roy appeared with 4 of his sons, and all of them fell down at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport: Bhavananda Roy had 5 sons, one of whom was the exalted personality known as Ramananda Roy. Bhavananda Roy first met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his return from South India. At that time, Ramananda Roy was still serving at his government post. Therefore, when Bhavananda Roy went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went with his other 4 sons. They were named Vaninath, Gopinath, Kalanidhi, and Sudhanidhi. A description of Bhavananda Roy and his 5 sons is given in the Adi Leela, 10.133 through 34. Now Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is about to speak. Ready?
Yes.
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, "This is Bhavananda Roy, the father of Sri Ramananda Roy, who is his first son." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Bhavananda Roy and with great respect spoke of his son, Ramananda Roy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu honored Bhavananda Roy by saying, "The glories of a person who has a jewel of a son like Ramananda Roy cannot be described within this mortal world. You are Maharaj Pandu himself, and your wife is Kunti Devi herself. All your highly intellectual sons are representatives of the 5 Pandavas." After hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's praise, Bhavananda Roy submitted, "I am the 4th class of the social order, and I engage in mundane affairs. Although I am very fallen, you have still touched me. This is proof that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead." As stated in Bhagavad Gita, this is purport, "Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gavihastini shruni chaiva shrupakecha pandita samadarshana." The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. Those who are highly advanced in spiritual understanding do not care about a person's material condition. A spiritually advanced person sees the spiritual identity of every living being, and consequently he makes no distinction between a learned brahmana, a dog, a chandala, or anyone else. He is not influenced by the material body, but sees a person's spiritual identity. Consequently, Bhavananda Roy appreciated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement, which showed that the Lord did not consider the social position of Bhavananda Roy, who belonged to the Shudra caste, engaged in mundane activities. Rather, the Lord considered the spiritual position of Bhavananda Roy along with that of Ramananda Roy and his brothers. The servant of the Lord is also similarly inclined. He gives shelter to any person, any living entity, regardless of whether he belongs to a Brahmana family or a Chandala family. The spiritual master reclaims all people and encourages everyone in spiritual life. By taking shelter of such a devotee, one can make his life successful. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, Hirata hunandra pulinda pulkusha abhira shumva yavana kasadaya inecha papa yadapashraya shraya shridyanti tasmai prabha vishnave nama. Hiratas, hunas, andras, pulindas, pulkashas, abhiras, shumbas, yavanas, and members of the kasha races, and even others who are addicted to sinful acts, can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Whoever takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or is pure devotee is elevated to the spiritual order and purified from material contamination. This is confirmed by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Mamhi partha vipashritya yepi su papayonaya sriyo vaishas tata shudras tepi yanti paramgatim. O son of Kunti, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and shudras workers, can attain the supreme destination. Comments, reflections, questions, discussion. Yes?
It's appreciating this point of this last verse we just read, of how anyone can become qualified by the process of devotional service. It doesn't matter what one's background is. I was just thinking of this verse, Aparabdam pulam papam kutam bijam pulam mukam kramnevana paliyeta vishnu bhakti ratatmana. The deep-seated impressions, conscious desires, reactions and unmanifested reactions, all those things are eradicated by the process of devotional service. Whereas in other spiritual paths, it really seems like there has to be like a lot of your own volition, and even that volition isn't enough to kind of get you to where you need to be. So bhakti is so accommodating that no matter what your background is, if you apply the process, you can become qualified to do something significant in the Lord's service.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the points is that even one's prarabdha karma, which means presently manifest karma, whatever body one has been accommodated from one's last life. So it's a contentious issue, but it shouldn't be, because it's there in the Bhagavatam very clearly, in the verse you quoted, that Brahma Sakshat Kirtanishjayapi is the verse from Rupa Goswami in the Namashtakam, where he says that by the appearance of the holy name, even one's prarabdha, present bodily karma, is eradicated as well. Those who are chanting the holy name purely rise above their whatever bodily designation they have because of the power of the holy name. That's also in Ahobata Shwapachato Gariyan verse from Devahuti. And it's also in the discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami and Haridas Thakur. Because there was some discussion about the state of Sanatana Goswami's body, in which he exhibiting these open sores on his body, and Mahaprabhu was embracing him anyway. And Sanatana Goswami complained, and he said, "Now I'm making offense towards you, touching your transcendental body." And in that section, Mahaprabhu establishes that the body of a devotee is not an ordinary body. It becomes a sadhaka deha, and one should look beyond any kind of designation. Drishtai sabhava janitara vapushashta dosha na prakrita famiha bhaktya danasya pashya gangam nasam nakala buddhapena pankara brahmadra vapam apakachti niradharmai. Says Rupa Goswami Upadeshamrita that one should not see a devotee according to material designations. Yes?
As a new devotee, it seems like it's really difficult to go beyond bodily designations. What should be done about this? What are some practical tips?
Well, one practical thing is to continue the process, and it's a maturing process, ripening process. Like a coconut, when it becomes fully mature, you can hear it rattle around inside because it's separated. Whereas a green coconut, it just seems like one thing. But as far as something practical to do, besides become Krishna conscious over time, is to abide by the etiquette of the Shastra, even if one has material vision and sees, oh, that devotee looks like this or that, one should suspend that based on Rupa Goswami's directions in the Upadeshamrita and say, oh, we're not to see Vaishnavas like that. Like Prabhupada, gave such directions early on about how we should see one another and call each other Prabhu, and be careful about how we interact with one another. And he once said about women, he said, you should consider them gopis. They're engaged in devotional service, so think of them like that, not as ordinary women. And, there's practical ways to hear the Shastra and then see through the eyes of Shastra. And did you mean when you see others, or when you see the way you see yourself?
I think it applies both ways.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed is automatically I naturally feel drawn to associate with people based on some bodily designations. They're on my age group. They seem like they're from a similar background. It's easier to relate with them. So I noticed that, I operate off of that every day, including people I approach on book distribution, the devotees I associate with. It seems like a really important aspect, where it really a big part of how I live my life.
That's very practical, actually. And birds of a feather flock together. If you have compatible association in devotional service, because you have some cultural similarity, it's not that you're going against the spirit of this, that you should go out of your way to live with people who can't speak the same language as you, although there's nothing wrong with that either. But it's quite natural for young people to gravitate towards other young people, and that's not a violation of the sense of this. There are ways in which people insist that the material condition cannot be overcome in this lifetime, because you are what you are. And the Smartas, for instance, say that you'll have to take rebirth in a Brahmana family before you can actually take up the process completely, because you blew it, you took birth like this. Whereas the Bhagavatam is saying, Kiratuhunanda Pralinda Pulkasha, which is naming all kinds of people who have nothing to do with Brahmin culture, he said, but they can also come to the highest level, beyond Brahmana, can become a Vaishnava by the purificatory process of chanting the holy name and serving a Vaishnava. So it means more like that, and it's not that we should imitate a Uttama Adhikari. Prabhupada talks about this in the Sri Upanishad, in those two verses 6 and 7. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaivad bhut vijanataha tatra koma kashoka ekapamar pashata yastu sarvani bhutani atmani vanu pashati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatunam vijigupsate. Both of them give the vision of the Uttama Adhikari, which is they see everybody equally. Time has come. Okay, but Prabhupada starts off in those purports, say, don't try to imitate Uttama Adhikari and just see everybody equally. He said, Anupashati means you should try to follow in their footsteps and follow the Shastra when seeing people, not in relationship to their body, but that they're spiritual souls. But because we don't see like that, it's very practical that we interact with the kinds of people that we have something in common with. It even goes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when accepting a spiritual master. Of course, spiritual master shouldn't be seen from an ordinary point of view, from cultural point of view. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur said there are some advantages if you know the language, for instance. You know, I know people have accepted spiritual masters and they don't speak their language. So nothing wrong with that, but it does add an extra level of difficulty to translate what they're saying. And then there's, there's also some cultural things that can be helpful if you resonate, even on that level. There's no harm in it. It's not the main thing, but it's a thing. Any last points?
I have a good question.
See, you do ask good questions. Yes.
Where we left off, we have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praising Bhavananda Roy by saying you are an incarnate, or you are Maharaj Pandu.
Yeah.
And it's reciprocated, or you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was just curious if you could elaborate on that. Is that I just would like to hear commentary on that interaction.
Okay, I'll make it short. That is, you may notice when you look at the Caitanya-caritāmṛta in the paintings, that Prabhupada commissioned certain paintings, and one of them was of the Harinām-saṅkīrtan Party and the rāsa-līlā, split screen. One's the rāsa-līlā, the other one's Harinām-saṅkīrtan. And the reason for that is that Kṛṣṇa-līlā and Caitanya-līlā are interchangeable. They're kind of like, if you've ever seen one, I don't know if they have them down here in SLO, but they're reversible jackets. You ever seen a reversible jacket? You can wear it one side, and then you turn it around, and it's like, hey, you got a good jacket. The other way, it's a good jacket. It's not like... And the deeper you go into Caitanya-līlā, eventually you'll come to Rādhā-Kṛṣṇa-līlā, and the deeper you go into Rādhā-Kṛṣṇa-līlā, the more you're going to come into Caitanya-līlā. And that theology is expressed in the very beginning. Rādhā-Kṛṣṇa pranaya vikritir hladini shaktirasma ekatmanam api bhuvi pura deha bedham katalta chaitanyakyam prakadamanana tadvayam chaikyam aptam radha bhava duti savalitam naumi Krishna sarupam, explaining how the Lord has eternally separated himself into Radha and Krishna for his own enjoyment, but now they've come back together again in Lord Chaitanya. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that by serving the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're able to qualify yourself to enter into Kṛṣṇa-līlā. That being said, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears, thousands of years later after Krishna, he brings all his associates with him, just as in the Krishna book you read that when Krishna's coming, it's called Tat Priyartam. He says all these other exalted people, should come with him. Because when Krishna appears, it's like a huge dramatic performance, his leela. And he brings all the players with him. And they all have their roles. And when he comes again, because he's Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he brings the same associates. Only now they have different names and interactions with the Lord. Although the interactions identify them as being the ones from before. And there's a book called the Ganodesha Deepika, which lists all of the crossovers. This one was that one, and the leela, and so forth. And just as many of the members of the Lord of Krishna's troop in Vrindavan, they're not even aware of who they are until Krishna reveals it to them. And in a similar way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's leela, at a certain point they start really, wait a minute. I know who you are, and who am I? They start to realize their relationship with Krishna. So the two are charmingly parallel, and the parallel nature of them is the same personalities are coming and taking those roles. So the devotees go to great length to identify their relationship with Krishna, and then with Lord Chaitanya also. And so that's what that's about. Those type of crossovers you'll find throughout the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. And Prabhupada will quote from the Ganodesha Deepika to describe, to say who were they in Kṛṣṇa-līlā. And sometimes, it's a little confusing because some say it was Lalita, this one's Lalita, they want to say Vishaka, and then so sometimes they're a combination of both. And that's a whole other topic about the way that Krishna's parshads, or his eternal associates in the spiritual world, also expand themselves in various ways to join the leela. And there are different ways, just as Krishna, Departureva Hita Shantanamabhipeta, like one candle expands into many candles with the same fire. In the same way, living entities, by Krishna's empowerment for his leela, can also expand themselves into various partial representations and be involved in various kinds of leela. So that's a whole topic. And should we mark this?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll continue this at Govardhan Hill. So come on down. Yeah, it was really nice to have this chance to read together.